told my girlfriend recently that she's pretentious. My girlfriend Anna is 26 and I'm 35. We've been together for almost 5 years now, and this is something that's always bothered me, but I never said anything until recently. Anna is smart and doesn't need to prove it to anyone, but she always seems to go out of her way to do stereotypically smart things. Like, for example, she does the New York Times crossword and Sudoku every day. She can get into trashy reality TV and action movies and stuff, but when I look at her Netflix profile, it's mostly highbrow, artsy, and foreign type movies and TV shows. She also knows a lot of random things about classical music, art, and literature, even though she was a STEM major, and I'm pretty sure she only looks that stuff up so that she can seem more educated and cultured. Over the weekend, my aunt and uncle were visiting from out of town, and my uncle, a college English teacher, kept commenting on what a great book collection we had and asked me what my favorites were. I haven't really read anything off the shelves. I mainly read my tablet and I'm not into classics now that I'm out of high school, and I just mentioned that they were Anna's mostly. Anyway, at dinner he started talking about some book with Anna, and I made a joke along the lines of, "Don't grill her too hard, she just has a bunch of pretentious books so people know she's smart." And both Anna, my uncle, and aunt got mad at me and told me that I was being rude. But I was just being honest, and Anna should know that she does come across as pretentious. Am I the asshole for telling my girlfriend that she's pretentious? My ex-fiance cheated on me with my cousin, and now my family wants me to forgive him because he's sick with cancer. I'm 27 and don't have any siblings, but I have a cousin named Kevin. He's 2 years younger than me, and we literally grew up together. I spent a lot of time with my dad's side of the family as my mom is deceased and my dad never remarried because of his health issues. I was there with Kevin most of the time and we did everything together. I've always been very close with my grandparents as well, so I was very comfortable being there. When I was engaged to my ex-fiance, I used to bring her over to my grandparents' house most of the time. Her, me, and Kevin would spend our time doing things together. I noticed Kevin would try to take part in personal conversations and try to tag along whenever we went out for dinner. I set some boundaries, but he just kept stomping over them. He tried to pick fights with me and claim I'm forgetting about him and prioritizing my ex over him, and I didn't know how to deal with this, so I kept my distance. In about 2 months, I found out from my aunt about Kevin constantly meeting up with my ex, and she told me that she was worried something was going on between Kevin and my ex-fiance, and she was right. Turns out, my ex and Kevin got together while I was being kept in the dark while I was planning our wedding and handing out invitations. I felt like an absolute idiot. I couldn't handle my anger, and I stopped everything and cut contact with Kevin and the family, except my dad because he needed me. I heard that Kevin was in and out of the hospital, but I didn't know why. That was until my aunt reached out to me telling me that Kevin has liver cancer and wasn't handling it well. I drove my dad to visit him once and saw my ex, who's now his girlfriend, there, and I left right away. I kept my distance, and recently I started getting calls from the family members asking, "Did you hear about Kevin?" and telling me the same story. My grandmother called me wanting to arrange for a family dinner on Christmas, and because Kevin got out of the hospital, they wanted me to come home hoping that I solved my issues with him, seeing that I may not be able to do it later. However, I refused. She told me that I needed to have some empathy and let go of the past because what happened to him was enough for me to let it go. They started pressuring me from all sides. I told my grandparents that I won't sit with my ex-fiance and the person who wronged me at the same table and pretend to be a happy family. They replied that I was resentful, that he's my cousin no matter what happens. It's the same people who allowed my ex into their house after what she did and sided with Kevin and said that they only allowed my ex into the house for Kevin's sake. Now they demand that I get right with him because he clearly deserves more sympathy than I do. I'm deeply hurt and I can't imagine sitting at the same table with the people who hurt me the most. What should I do at this point? I think everyone is being unfair and refusing or just ignoring what Kevin did to me. When I was 19, I had an unexpected pregnancy. My ex didn't want to keep the baby, but I did and we stayed together anyway. She was born with a birth defect and died at 2 days old. Since I knew my ex never wanted her, I definitely blamed him, which was wrong. I was upset he didn't care like I did. I ended up cheating with a guy at a support group whose young child also died. I take full responsibility. We broke up and I took a break from relationships and pursued personal therapy. My ex is married now, yet every relationship I've been in since, 3 including my fiance, he's messaged the guys warning them that I'm a cheater, and the second time he even messaged the guy's parents. Both the relationships ended shortly after, and now he's contacted my fiance, who I actually told ahead of time, and he understands. I found out the reason why he's been able to find out about all my relationships is because he follows a ton of my family members on Facebook. However, I don't have a Facebook. Do I tell everyone to block him? I tried to talk to him about it, and he says if I don't tell them, I'm lying by omission. But that was 10 years ago. He says that it says something about my character that can't be fixed with time. I went to therapy. It was horrible circumstances, and I honestly don't think that I'm a bad person. I don't know if it would be wrong to talk to his wife. I'm afraid he's going to tell my fiance's parents or my future kids. I just want him to stop. What would you do? In 2019, I got into a car accident and injured my left leg severely. My ex-girlfriend was the one driving and was the one responsible for the accident because she was fighting and yelling at me in the car over a minor issue. I advised her to either stop fighting or stop driving, but she was reckless and didn't care that she was risking not only my life, but hers as well. I suffered for months because of my leg. I had a severe infection resulting in amputation and had to use assisted tools to be able to move. My ex-girlfriend became distant and my parents were my main carers. Her treatment towards me took a 180 turn. Suddenly, I wasn't good enough for her anymore, and at some point, she started comparing me to other fully functional guys, claiming I wasn't the problem. It's her low self-esteem, and she was required to look for a partner with a better look, financial stability, and so on. She made my trauma all about her and how being with a guy with one leg affected her self-esteem. She broke things off with me, and our relationship was supposed to end that day, but I foolishly spent months and months begging and convincing her that we were meant to be together. I even promised her that I'd do all I can to be able to walk again, and reminded her of the plans we had together, and I hated myself for it. My self-esteem was almost non-existent. I was dealing with PTSD on top of that. I fucked up and resorted to medication to ease the pain. Therapy was on and off for me because I'd get extremely agitated at the mention of my ex-girlfriend. I was so stupid thinking she was my one and only, and it got worse when I became convinced that no one will accept me and my disability since it's the reason my relationship with my ex-girlfriend ended. My parents helped us so much. They and a few friends supported me to get through this after seeing my overall overall health decline. In the past 6 months, I was given the opportunity to be able to walk again after getting my prosthetic leg. It was long overdue, but money was the main problem. I'm a lot better now. My health is getting better, my mental health improved, and gained more self-confidence. My ex-girlfriend reached out to one of my friends wanting to talk to me about getting the prosthesis and bettering my health. My friend was like a messenger between us, but I kept her in the dark so that she knows nothing more than what my friend knows. I made it clear that I have no intentions to speak to her or discuss my health with her. My friend was respectful and stopped speaking to her about me. She visited my mom last week and left her number with her expecting me to call. My mom told me that my ex was out of town and was low contact with everyone and couldn't check in on me despite wanting to. She said I've never left her mind and that she was feeling happy and excited for my experience with my new prosthesis. Right now, she's waiting for me to call so we can get together and talk, but I didn't feel comfortable with the idea. I gotta say, I felt nostalgic and wanted to call her number a few times, but part of me prevented me from doing so. It's been a week and I didn't call her. I'm not sure if I still have feelings for her. My family said that I should talk to her. After all, we've known each other for 7 years. It's clear that she wants to connect, but I just don't think this is what I want. How should I deal with this pressure? My girlfriend lied to me about her age and is actually 18. I'm shocked and I don't know if I can proceed with this relationship. Long story short, I was using Hinge and I sent her a comment since I saw from her profile that we had a lot in common. It said she was 21, goes to a nearby college, etc. She even confirmed that with me, telling me a birthday that would say that she's 21. We matched in the fall of 2020 and have been dating since November to now. Well, it wasn't until our most recent date where at this time I asked if she wanted to get drinks and she tells me that she can't. Obviously, drinking age is 21 and up, and she said she wanted to tell me for a while, but she was using the dating apps while in high school. So at 15, she put that her age was 18 and never deleted it. She said that she just forgot about it, and I know that people use dating apps when they're a year or two younger, but for months she kept it a secret. She was my first girlfriend and meant a lot to me. She gave me space because she said that she knows it's a lot to take in. The thing is, I don't know if I can move past this, and I feel weird dating someone way younger than me. She says she loves me and that we can make this work, but is that even possible? If I knew her true age at the time that I messaged her, even if we had all this in common or got along well, I still wouldn't have dated her. I'm 25 and I want to be able to have a future and significant other who I can share that life with, but she's not on the same level of finances and life that I am. And she probably won't be for a few years if I do stick it out. What should I do? Imagine going on a cruise with your family only to end up on the FBI's most wanted missing persons list. This was the fate of a young girl named Amy Lynn Bradley when she went on a holiday family vacation. Amy had just graduated and boarded the Royal Caribbean's Rhapsody of the Seas cruise with her parents and her brother Brad in March of 1998. The family was having a great time together, enjoying all the ship's amenities, and Amy even became friends with the ship's band, the Blue Orchid. On the night of March 23rd, Amy and her brother partied in the ship's club. Amy danced and chatted with the bass player, Yellow, aka Alistair Douglas. Around 1 a.m., the siblings called it a night and returned to their family's cabin together. This would be the last time that Brad ever saw his sister. A few hours later, at 5:30 in the morning, Ron Bradley, Amy's father, saw her on the deck of their family's stateroom lounging peacefully. All seemed well, but 30 minutes later, when he looked again, Amy had vanished. Ron assumed Amy went back to sleep in her bedroom, but when he checked, she wasn't there either. Ron went and checked the ship's common areas, but couldn't find Amy, and the family started to worry. They begged the cruise ship staff to cancel docking at Curacao, but were ignored. Both 2,400 passengers and 765 crew members were allowed off the ship. As the Bradley family continued to desperately search for Amy, the ship's staff remained unhelpful. They didn't want to announce her disappearance or hang photos of her around the vessel, afraid it might upset the other passengers, and they only searched common areas, not staff or passenger cabins. It was possible that Amy might have fallen overboard, but extremely unlikely because she was a trained lifeguard and experienced avid swimmer. That's when her family recalled how Amy was receiving a lot of special attention from the ship's crew. A waiter had asked Amy out to a restaurant called Carlos and Charlie's during the ship's dock to Aruba. However, Amy had rejected this offer and stated how the crew members gave her the creeps. She wasn't wrong to feel this way, as it just so happens another young American woman had disappeared shortly after being seen at that same restaurant in Aruba. The Bradley family did everything in their power to find Amy, but it was like she vanished completely and all the leads went cold. However, the Bradley family never gave up and were hopeful when multiple people in the Caribbean claimed to have seen their daughter over the years. Just 5 months after her disappearance, 2 Canadian tourists spotted a woman who matched Amy's description on the beach with the exact same tattoos as Amy. These tattoos were pretty specific, such as a Tasmanian devil with a basketball on her shoulder, a sun on her lower back, a lizard on her stomach, and a Chinese symbol on her left ankle. She was accompanied by 2 men, and she tried to say something, but the men gestured her away. One of the tourists believes 100% that it was her. The following year, a woman comes forward stating that she's Amy Lynn Bradley at a brothel in Curacao. Crime Fanatic Friday Part 2, The Girl Who Disappeared from a Cruise Ship. 1 year after Amy Lynn Bradley's disappearance in 1999, a member of the Navy was in a brothel in Curacao when a woman came up to him and told him that she's Amy Lynn Bradley. She begged for his help, but he didn't report it because he didn't want to get in trouble. The officer stayed quiet until after his retirement when he saw Amy's face on People magazine, but by then she was long gone. That same year, the Bradley family gained a tremendous amount of hope when a man named Frank Jones, claiming to be a former U.S. Army Special Forces officer, contacted them. He stated that he knew exactly where Amy was and he could rescue her from the armed Colombians holding her in Curacao. Jones even had a witness statement from a cook who told the family that Amy was being held in a complex protected with barbed wire. The cook described Amy's tattoos and even hummed a lullaby that Amy's mom used to sing to her daughter when she was a baby. However, this all later turned out to be a complete fraud. Jones managed to scam the Bradleys out of over $200,000 with his charade of getting their daughter back. It turns out that all the evidence he showed them was made up, leaving the Bradleys back at square one. However, the sightings of Amy didn't stop. In 2005, the Bradleys received an email with a picture of a woman who appeared to be Amy, lying on a bed in her underwear. A member of an organization that locates sex trafficking victims on adult websites noticed the photo and thought it was Amy. She was identified as a woman named Jazz, a sex worker in the Caribbean. Unfortunately, this clue never generated new leads, and to this day, Amy Lynn Bradley remains missing. She continues to be listed on the FBI's most wanted missing persons list. Her family, however, has never given up hope and have offered sizable rewards and information on her whereabouts. My girlfriend comes from a wealthy background and grew up with maids, chefs, chauffeurs, etc. I was raised in a completely opposite environment and still adjusting to dating someone like her. When we were not with her parents, we spent a lot of time at one of her apartments. Here's the issue. My girlfriend likes to walk around home barely wearing anything, which is fine. Awesome even. But she does this even when the help are around. For example, last month her family hired a new driver for her. He stopped by the apartment to introduce himself. She was only wearing underwear. Keep in mind, this is the first time they've met in person. I felt awkward. He was visibly awkward and she didn't give a shit at all. She was casually chatting to him while scrolling away on her phone. She does this all the time. She doesn't think that she needs to wear any decent amount of clothes at all when people that work for her are around. She will casually walk around wearing just a thong or a tiny crop top. Just a crop top, nothing else. She even does this with complete strangers. One time she opened the door for the delivery guy wearing only a see-through gown. You could see everything. Afterwards, I talked to her about it and she was utterly confused as to why I felt uncomfortable. Then she laughed and told me to stop being a jealous baby. She even said that I'm being unreasonable. We had another discussion about this yesterday and told her that she probably wouldn't feel comfortable if I did the same. She said that she doesn't understand why I care what her staff think and that it never even crossed her mind that this is inappropriate. She told me that she only does this in the comfort of her own home and not in front of actual people. So she doesn't consider the people that work for her actual people. She got kind of mad at me and vented to her friends. According to all of them, I'm weird for having a problem with this and an asshole for telling my girlfriend to cover up. Somehow, I'm the villain of this story. Am I the asshole for telling my girlfriend to cover up her body when strangers enter the home? Storytime when I accidentally called the police while I was handcuffed and being spanked by my husband. I'm a female BDSM practitioner. I enjoy it and I won't apologize for it. My husband often cuffs and whips me, and on Wednesday we had a pretty hardcore session. He put these big leather cuffs on me but failed to take off my Apple Watch. I didn't realize that if you hold the dial down, it automatically calls 911. So we get into it and he's spanking me and I'm pulling on my restraints and the restraints hold on the button. He's smacking me pretty good and suddenly I hear from my watch, "Ma'am, I hear what appears to be hitting and screaming. We are sending someone to you. Hold tight." "Did you call 911? My husband asked. "Tell them it was an accident." So I tell the operator that it was just an accident and she says, "Is your name?" And I say, "Yes." And she says, "We have your address from our database and we're sending someone over now. I'm sorry, but we hear a male voice telling you what to say and this sounds like coercion on our end, so we're obligated to make sure that you're safe." I said, "Okay, thank you," and I hung up. Shit, I'm literally covered in bruises and welts and the police are coming to check on my well-being. Within a few minutes, there's a stern knock on the door. We put our clothes on and come to the door and the police take my husband outside, separating us from communication. I calmly explained that it was an accident and we were just having really crazy sex. I didn't mention the spanking. Apparently my husband did. Another police officer comes in and asks about our BDSM contract. "He told you about our contract?" The officer replied, he felt it was best to come clean about your extracurricular activities tonight and thought that the contract would possibly show his state of mind. I get our contract and show it to the officers. After a mortifying few minutes explaining that he was only smacking my ass and thighs, they believe us and tell us to disable the 911 feature on the Apple Watch if we're going to do that again. Storytime about when I accidentally submitted hardcore furry erotica inside of my final paper. So I'm currently a 4th year computer science student at a pretty respected university and was looking to graduate this semester. One of the classes I was taking was a class in modern advancements and trends in the field of technology. While the class didn't require much heavy lifting, it was still a higher level one and required a good amount of work. For our final, our professor had assigned us a 20-page research paper into a current or possible future technology of our choice within the field. I did my paper on helium-3 power generation. I worked my ass off on this paper and in the end was super proud of it. The papers were due last night at midnight and I held off on submitting my final draft till the end because I wanted to get it as clean as possible. This is where I fucked up big time. Let me tell you a little about myself. I don't work a normal job. I tried it in my first year of school and I really didn't like it. I've worked internships when they come, but outside of that, I didn't really work. This and being a student really doesn't mix well though. For the past 3 years, I've gone by on writing hardcore erotica on commission, specifically for furries. I would write anything. Any fetish, any premise, anything. In some parts of that community, I became really popular. At one point, I was making almost $2,500 on Patreon along with the amounts I charged to my customers. Am I proud of this? No. I have written some really disgusting stuff, but it paid the bills and the money was too good to pass up. I told myself the minute I got a real job, I was cutting and running from this work. Well, this brings us to last night. I had not gotten any sleep for the past few nights. I had multiple projects due in the span of a few days. I was running on nothing but coffee and Rockstar. I was nothing more than a walking corpse and wanted to do nothing but sleep. I ended up doing my last read over of my final paper and submitted it before sleeping. However, instead of submitting my final paper, I somehow submitted one of the commissions I was working on. This commission is not light either. It's almost 10 pages long and contains a variety of things including vor and scat. So I went to bed. Submissions for the final locked and my academic career was sentenced to death then and there. When I woke up this morning, I checked my grades for my other classes before noticing an email from my professor. All it says was to come to his office after class today. I want to fucking die right now. I don't know how I'm going to explain why instead of my final, I submitted a hardcore erotic story with a wolf man jacking off in a dragon's stomach. But yeah, I fucked up big time. I'm 34 and my brother 29 got married a few years ago to literally the sweetest woman, 28, in the world. A year or so ago, she was in a car accident and suffered a traumatic brain injury. She's never been quite the same. Her voice is always shaky and she stutters a lot. She can be a bit slow to process things. She needed to relearn basic tasks. Just issues like that. Well, they were over at Thanksgiving and it must have been a particularly hard day for her, maybe because she was overwhelmed or something and it was difficult talking to her. Like I asked her if she wanted something to drink and she stared at me for a moment and it wasn't until my brother came and crouched down and asked her what she wanted to drink that she answered. She wanted apple juice. We didn't have any apple juice so my brother walked all the way down to the gas station to get her a bottle instead of just saying no, have water. My brother dished out her plate and when dinner was over, she volunteered to do the dishes and my brother helped too. The rest of the family went to chat in the living room and when I came to refill my glass of wine, I watched while they laughed and danced and acted like they used to. He seemed so happy doing that and less happy when he had to help her. It's just hard having to wait on her. Like we were playing some board games and